Thank you very much, guys. How are you doing?
Excellent. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for the
Great.
invite.
First time in South Summit?
Yeah,
How are you finding the event, everything?
amazing.
More people than you thought. Yeah. So, guys, just to start, can you please make an introduction on yourselves, on your personal and professional backgrounds, and what brings you here?
Sure.
Do you want to start by Peter?
Sure, happy to. So hello everybody, my name is Peter, one of the founders and the CEO of Refurbed. We are a marketplace for refurbished electronics, and we started 5 years ago by the very simple vision that we believe that we need to change our economy. We need to change the economy from a linear model of producing stuff, using it, and then throwing it away, which is very unfortunate and very wasteful, to a circular model, which means producing things, using them, and then giving them another second life. And this is the core idea of Refurbed, and we are a marketplace for refurbished electronics, which means these are phones, laptops, tablets that are completely renewed, they look like new, function like new. As a customer, you save around 40%, you get at least a year of warranty, and the products are super sustainable. Right? So we have a very unique combination of great USPs around price and quality with, for us, the ultimate goal of sustainability. So we ultimately want to make consumption sustainable, and we started this with electronics and are now venturing out into many different categories. And ultimately, the goal is to build the green Amazon for sustainability, so that for you as a consumer, if you want to buy something sustainable, we want to be the one-stop shop where you can get everything in the most sustainable way for you as a consumer.
Thank you.
Cool. My name is Dimitra. I'm the co-founder at Preply. Preply is the world's biggest marketplace for online language tutoring. We connect hundreds of thousands of students who want to learn foreign languages to our network of tutors online. So if you want to learn some foreign language, like Spanish or German or English, you should go to preply.com and see how it works. We started 9 years ago in Ukraine, grew from 3 people to around 400 right now, and we opened our Barcelona hub 3 years ago. Now it's our main office. We have more than 200 people working in Spain, and it was a fascinating journey for me as a co-founder, so I'll be super happy to share some of learnings that I had.
Thank you very much. You have a lot to share. So, Sarah?
Yes, hello. My name is Sarah Schwartz. I'm a partner at Across Legal. Across Legal is a boutique law firm based at various offices in Spain, dedicated to M&A and venture capital. Myself, I'm a U.S. and Spanish-trained M&A and venture capital lawyer based here in Madrid. And people hire me on these international deals to kind of do the Spanish part of the deals. Before working at Across Legal, I worked in-house for a while as Senior Legal Counsel of M&A and Venture Capital at Amadeus IT Group, and before that, big law, both in Chicago and Madrid.
Okay, great. Well, I'm going to explain a little bit more about myself as well. So we are former entrepreneurs and then turned out to investors. We started 4 years ago. My partners had sold our company to TicketBiz to eBay. We started as angels, as small angels. Then we decided to raise an institutional fund. Then we invested in 43 companies, and then we raised a fund of funds. And in parallel to that, we also built 3 companies as an incubation, call it somehow. 2 of them were doing very well right now, and the other one didn't go through. So kind of a high growth venture capital, if you want to call it somehow as well, with 150 investors with 43 companies, and just multiply that by 3. So that's the number of entrepreneurs that we are backing and trying to get them there. Just a disclaimer, both Refurb, or Peter, and Dimitra are 2 of the founders that we back. Guys, when you look at high growth, everything looks like a direct line. Is it real or not?
Oh.
Please.
Hard job. So if you look from far enough, yeah, it's a very high growth, exponential growth that everybody is aiming for. But if you are a founder or like a member of the early member of the team at the startup, you see it's very bumpy. So everybody has highs and lows, and every business has highs and lows. For Preply, it was super essential that we had few co-founders and we had very complementary skills. And also, when we had some kind of ups and downs, we were able to compensate each other. Like when I got demotivated because I wasn't able to hire some good engineering leader, my co-founder Carol came to me and said, hey, and here we closed 1 or 2 good B2B deals. So in our case, the line was kind of, if you approximate it, very linear and going up, but if you zoom in, there were like very bumpy moments, as in any business. And I think what helps a lot is to have a great team, good co-founding team that have a chemistry between them, and also have a set of values that help to support that explosive growth. Because in our case, when there were like 10 people, it is super easy to understand what everybody is doing. You can just like work with engineer, you can just talk with some marketeer to understand what they are doing tactically, operationally. But when you cross like around 50 people mark, you don't know what everybody is doing. So you need to rely on your like second layer of managers, and then they need to rely on their second layer or third layer of managers. And the problem is that you as a co-founder have very strong views on how things should be done. And there is no way how you can transmit that to individual contributors without kind of not breaking the hierarchy of management in the team. It is disruptive just to say everybody what to do, and you won't be able to do that to hundreds of people. So you need to build some kind of values and hire by that values, performance manage people by their values, and unfortunately part ways sometimes with people who don't comply with your values anymore. So one of the most strong lessons for me was like have strong codified values, not just like words on the wall, but like real values that people live in when you cross a mark of 50 people. Yeah?
Let me challenge you a little bit more. There are some companies that go from starting the company to seed to A round in a defined period of, I don't know, 18 months.
Yeah.
Boom, boom. But I don't remember you guys that some of your seed investors you have already spoken with them 2 or 3 times before. So it's like your seed round was not the straightest forward thing in the world. And I guess part of that is because your business is very complex, where you have supply all over the world and demand all over the world. What was not working back then, and what was the basic foundation that you create in order to start growing?
Yeah. I think that there are 2 components for hypergrowth for startups. First one is some secret sauce, something about the market that you know and your competitors do not. And the second component is a strong team that is able to execute on that. And when we started the company, our secret sauce was that we were very good at product marketing thing. So we kind of knew some channels that worked best for us, and our competitors were not as fast as we. But over like 2 or 3 years, we understood that only by doing great marketing, you are not able to build a great business. So our secret sauce changed, it evolved. We became a very product-driven organization. We understood that we need to be super learners-obsessed to be successful. And we became very like product-centric organization, and marketing like was on the second role. And then 2 or 3 years more passed, and we understood that, okay, our secret sauce right now is that we need to work with the data more, because we have like now thousands or millions of clients all over the world. So in our case, what helps us like to get that kind of explosive growth was kind of constant process of reinventing ourselves and finding something that we are orders of magnitude better than our competitors. First it was marketing, then it was product, now it is data, and to be honest, I don't know what it will be like in 2 or 3 years. Perhaps we'll go back to marketing, like launch new product lines. I don't know yet. And the second thing is like you need to have a team that is super strong in these areas that you consider to be your unfair competitive advantage, your secret sauce.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, you said many, many things that are absolutely true. Maybe to reiterate on a few things, one thing that we learned, and you mentioned it briefly, is when you go from 2 employees to 10 to 50 to 250 where we are right now, you need completely different processes. And the values is one thing that is really important, that you have to really instill that into the base of your company from the first day onwards. But the second one is also to think about the processes that you need in a company, right? You cannot build a company without processes, but there's also a thin line to over-engineering processes and making your company too process-heavy. So what always helped us a lot is to really think about where do we need a process now, and where are we taking the decision saying, hey, we do not need a process, we will push this out another 6 months. Because you can just focus on building processes for your company and internally the whole time when you go for this hyper-growth from 0 to 250 people. And that's a very thin line, but it's something that very few people talk about, but we realized it actually helped us a lot to keep our focus on the company without spending too much time internally, because a lot of discussions are going on. If you have 250 people, everybody has an opinion, and if you don't manage that communication and that process-wise in a good way, then building a company for the consumer is getting very hard very quickly.
There is, your business is pretty interesting because, I mean, there's not only a growing category, a growing market, and definitely a trend that is over there, but also some underlying basics on the market that enable a very high growth. Because a lot of things you can say, it's theoretically can be big, but yeah, no company still has conquered that. What is different in your case? I mean, what's making you able, what is enabling you to build such a big businesses in your countries?
So one thing that we did different to a lot of our competitors is the business model, right? We are a marketplace. That means we don't actually own anything. Like, I don't know how to repair a phone, right? Which I would be interested in, but I don't have time to learn it. But we as a company do not own any equipment, we don't own any product, but we have a marketplace, which means we have a lot of refurbishers on the one hand side who do a great job, who are the experts in refurbishing equipment, and they are based across Europe. And so what we do is we aggregate the best merchants across Europe on a single platform, build a really good platform. We can really focus on building that and then creating a brand for the consumer that educates the consumer and tells the consumer, hey, don't buy new stuff, buy refurbed electronics. And this model enables us to scale extremely quickly because we don't have to recreate all of that in every market. If we go into a new market, we can utilize everything we built for the previous market and just use it again. And our supply base is also on a European level. So for example, when we went to Sweden, within 6 months we became the market leader there, although we didn't have a single merchant in Sweden. We could just use our European-based merchant base to deliver the products there. And for that, we actually have very strong network effects that come into play the bigger we get, the more countries we have. And through that, growth basically is coming by itself.
Mm-hmm. Sarah, you have been a long time in Amadeus, so you have watched the film from the two sides of the camera. What has been the learning that you took from there, and how are you trying to apply those from your activity at the moment?
Yeah, no, so I think Amadeus starts out really well when they start out planning their business plan and their business case and thinking about from the beginning doing their due diligence, not just on the commercial terms, so not just on the competitive environment, the opportunity for the product, et cetera, but also looking at from the legal side, what type of regulations am I going to find there? Are they the same as what I have here, or am I all of a sudden going to be hit with additional types of licensing or labeling or other types of restrictions? And so from the beginning, those type of going in with knowledge makes the ride, I think, a little bit easier because you now know what to expect a bit and the challenges seem a little bit less.
In my experience in internationalizing consumer businesses, usually the lawyers are like, you cannot do this, this is forbidden, you cannot disintermediate this. How many situations like this you have faced with entrepreneurs and how did they end up?
Yeah, the Department of No, right?
Yeah.
That's what they want to call the legal department. No, we should not be doing that. And this came, we are here to facilitate what the business owners want to do. I mean, you have to come and tell me what your plan is, where do you want to go, and then I can help you design the structure, how to get there. And we talk about internationalization. What does that mean? Well, I mean, you can do it in export strategy. It sounds like that's what you're doing. So, that can be handled with your own sales teams from home. It can be hired with a distributor. These are different type of contractual relationships. Or you can start doing local presence type stuff. And now you're talking about M&A, you're talking about greenfield investment, you're talking about going to a joint venture. So if you take the lawyer along from the beginning, we can take around and hear what you guys want to do and then help put in the structure from the beginning. I think sometimes it comes in where we come in the end and then we freak out and go, no.
It's better to say, I want to get there, just figure out how to get there, right?
Yeah, we'll help you figure out. I mean, we hope to be partners. That's the ultimate goal. You want to be a business partner. They taught me that in Amadeus. So.
Definitely. Guys, what is your, to share a little bit more with the people here, is like, what is their basic and the framework to internationalize? Because you have very different models. Yours is, Peter, is super local, super, let's say, hardware-based. Well, hardware-based. I mean, you have a specific device that you need to move from local suppliers, local demand, local marketing. Dimitro, yours is super international. You have I was the other day with a girl in Brazil who was saying, no, I'm working in glasses. Preply. Where are your customers from? One is from South Africa, the other one is from I don't know where. So like, how did you guys build your framework in order to decide what is the internationalization strategy and what are the first countries and what is the order you should follow?
Yeah, what we did was actually very interesting. We did, as a first step, when we decided where we want to go, we actually did this classic macro environmental analysis and looked at GDP and all of these things. From that, we actually reduced the list of countries in Europe from 25 to 12 that we actually found more interesting. And then we actually translated our website into English, launched in all of these markets within a few weeks, and only targeted people speaking English in that country. So we were able to actually compare the results we had with a real-time test and understand the conversion rates, understand the customer acquisition costs, etc., with a real test much better than we could do for research, right? And so for this test, we actually had then a very prioritized list of 6 countries where we said, hey, we know this business is going to work really well in these markets. And then we targeted each of those markets individually, created a different marketing strategy for each of these markets, understood the customer very individually because each customer in Europe is very different, right? A Swedish customer is very different from an Italian or a Polish customer. So we have these differences in marketing. But after this first test, we knew this would work, and then we had a lot of energy because we had a lot of focus on building the businesses in these countries. And for that, we now are running through this list, and so far we've been very successful with every country we managed to go to.
Do you have a launcher to every country? Or is it called opening one by one? Or?
Yeah, so we usually do 1 or 2 at a time. We have a specific team that only does market launches. They launch the market and they work on the market for the first 6 months. And then basically the people we hire, local marketing managers, for example, we hire local people in Sweden, and then they take over the market and develop it further.
Okay, and have you decided to double down on some of these markets, or all of them were so good that you decided to keep spreading across them?
Yeah, so far all the markets worked really well. Yeah, so we're basically just continuing growing in these markets. But I think it's also because we put a lot of energy into testing and making sure that when we expand into a market, it actually makes sense.
Yeah, there's another strategy which is like take the I don't know 10, 20 markets and just start removing the ones that do not work and double down on the other one. It's a kind of reverse the cycle, and some hyper local marketplaces works pretty well. Yeah. What about you, Dimitri?
Yeah, it looks like our playbook. Originally, like in 2014, we started in Kyiv, Ukraine. So we were super local on one market. And the war started, the first war with Russia, and basically we understood we should internationalize. So how do we select the markets now? And we were like very simple at that point of time. We were not very strategic. The US, because it's the biggest market, Brazil, because it has a lot of population and there is a lot of query volume, and Poland, because it's our neighbor, so perhaps we know mentality well. And each of these markets grew, but the US like skyrocketed. So our learning is that whatever like you aim to do, in the end, you should look at the data, and the US is by all means one of the biggest markets in the world, and it's super easy for everyone to go to because it's English-speaking market. And even if you're native speakers and make some, not native speaker, but make some typos on the website, people will not be so picky about not buying products from you. So our learning was that, okay, United States work really well, these markets work, it works so, how can we expand? And we decided to go with the strategy that you described. We just basically localized our website to different languages and started pouring marketing here and there and see what grows. And we identified that, okay, European markets grow really well, like the UK, France, Germany, Spain, and we didn't put any restrictions on which markets kind of we are operating in. So we even saw like some people from Vatican using Preply. So for us it was like we are launched everywhere. Vatican, like the Rome, holy city and so on. So for us it was kind of a story, so just offer the product to as much people as possible and see what market grow just to relocate your marketing budget. But we shouldn't put any restrictions for ourselves. There is a legal part that you cannot like launch in some countries or do some things on some markets. And when we communicate with lawyers about our international plans or expansion, we don't have a question, are we allowed to do that or not? Our question is like, okay, how can we do this? How much will it cost? What can we like do to kind of launch this market or launch this product on this market? So business model helps a lot. to be in that kind of self-serve for every market. And marketplaces are very intrinsically open to fast internationalization because they have arbitrage opportunities. In our case, what helped a lot was that we were selling teachers from different languages all over the world. But for example, you can sell a teacher of English from Philippines for a super cheap price for European customers because in Philippines, average hourly rate is much lower than in the US. And by playing with this kind of geographical inequalities, time zone differences, you can find really interesting points of revenue for your business. So what helped us also was our business model.
So what could be a limitation in your case is also an advantage, which is that it enables to internationalize and take advantage of our supply or demand in any case.
Exactly, but in our case, what we also figured that we need strong people from our core markets to be in-house in the team, and for non-core markets, we just hire freelancers. So playbook is very simple. Like you see that something is growing, you need to get the person from this market on board to understand the mentality of the customer. Easy example, in the United States, they use so-called military time, so they don't write 18 o'clock, which is 6 p.m. for them, or vice versa. And we as Ukrainians, we don't know that peculiarity. People from Europe perhaps don't know that peculiarity, but American will notice, the citizen of America. Also, some people use commas or dots when they separate amounts, numbers on the checkout page. Some languages have grammar rules where they put some marks in the beginning and in the end of the sentence, like Spanish. Okay. They questioned differently. So there are a lot of localization things that are very local to the market, which payments methods people use. German people need to have a special link to legal terms on the very prominent place on the website because it's super important for them. It's called Impressum. I wouldn't know that if we wouldn't have some kind of German person working in our marketing team to explain, yeah, that's super important to have it.
How many nationalities in the team?
Around 50.
50,
so,
50.
Yeah, so we have basically 400 people and 47 perhaps nationalities to be precise, 48. Yeah. So we have people from all over the world. And being in Barcelona is very helpful because it's a very international city. It's easy to relocate talent, basically from all over Europe, and there are a lot of international talent there. Yeah.
Definitely. Peter, what were the biggest bottlenecks that you guys experienced? The biggest challenge and bottlenecks making internationalization?
Yeah. In terms of, in general, for us as a business, it's the supply side, right? We have a lot of demand from consumers. Consumers love our idea, but it's really hard for us to get enough supply on the platform, right? So it means we have to have more and more merchants. And we also need to make sure that these merchants actually have good quality. Because for us as a business, the main focus is to make customers happy. And if you don't have good quality, it's very hard. Right? So the biggest challenge and the biggest bottleneck is get high quality supply. And then on international level is even harder. And so this is the biggest bottleneck for us as a company, but also for us to internationalize.
And what is the thing that the VCs understand the least when making a company international? The risk that they understand the least.
The risk that they understand the least.
Other VCs, not us,
Of course. You guys understand everything. Yeah? No, so others, I would say, don't appreciate that people are different. For them, Europe is a continent, it's the EU, everybody's the same, and Spanish people are the same as the Germans and the Swedish people, and they don't understand that culturally, a lot of things are different. One example is the NPS, Net Promoter Score, which is one of the most important KPIs for us, right? It tracks how happy the customers are. And so we have very different rates across Europe, but it's actually not the case that people are less happy in Sweden than in Germany, but it's just a different culture of rating the service. So we have NPS is 20 points lower, which would be actually a nightmare. However, in Sweden, people are just, have a different custom to answering these questions. And so fine granularities like this is very hard to understand as a VC if you don't actually know how the operational work of a business works.
Yeah. And when there are two ways, which is to internationalize, one is organic, the other one is with M&A. What would justify an M&A in your case, guys? What instead of doing that by yourselves?
So so you can do organic or you can do M&A. I think part of the M&A discussion is how quick you want to go to market. I think it's also how familiar you are with the local culture. Obviously, if you have a local presence of people who are already there with a client base and know the market very well, you get to speed much faster. Greenfield is yours, so the culture issue, you can implant that from the beginning. Obviously, in the integration phase of any M&A, you have the challenges of making them one of you and retaining that and maintaining that within the budget that's been set up from the beginning. So, the advantage there is speed and local presence in my experience.
Okay. If you strategically, if you eventually think on an M&A, what would you look for? Would you look for team? Would you look for market presence? Would you look for?
Yeah, for us, in terms of internationalization, I wouldn't see any case for M&A because we're so fast into going in a new market. However, what I said earlier is that we're looking into different categories right now. And this is an area where we do look into M&A opportunities because a company might have great connections with a lot of suppliers. That takes a lot of time for us. I mentioned earlier that is the biggest challenge for us. So if a company actually has this particular aspect and they have a lot of relationships with suppliers, then it would actually make sense for us to do M&A. And these are the things that we actively look at right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any category that you can mention in case there is some entrepreneur around a table that says, I have a company here.
I mean, we're looking at almost all consumer categories, right? From sports to fashion, furniture, home and living, entertainment, basically everything.
Great.
In our case, it's also very similar, but instead of supply, we are just looking for strong local players on the markets where we are underrepresented. We think that on an international scale, it's much easier to overcompete competitors if there is another global player, like it's a fascinating game, who is better at marketing, at product, at serving customers. But buying small local player would be one of our playbooks, and also there is more tactical M&As buying content websites, just to build stronger brand and domain authority and expert brand in some niche.
So you would encourage, let's say, smaller founders to join forces with bigger companies because in nowadays environment, competition is super fierce, so it's much better to be with the right team and with the right boat rather than try to fight by themselves, right?
Yeah. If incentives are aligned, like if founders from the smaller companies will get a piece of a pie if the company goes public, become unicorn and unicorn, definitely. People are the most amazing asset. If I would find some strong entrepreneurs that could join Preply, and we did some of the M&As bring more entrepreneurs on board, that's a fascinating story. But that's a value fit.
Great.
Not that often.
So thank you guys. Thank you very much. Super helpful your discussion, and thank you very much, Sarah. And I guess there is going to be a bunch of entrepreneurs wanting to speak with you because your experience has been really interesting. I think they guys have covered like 5% of everything they can say. So if you can take them right there, I think it would be a very good idea. Thank you very much and have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.